Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, your Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of the team with the best run differential in baseball, the best WRC plus in baseball, the best record in the American League, the best everything in the anywhere. That team, of course, is the New York Yankees. Whipple, it's been a while since we've been on an episode together. I'm in a different place than I've typically been. You're in a different place than you've typically been. I'm in a place where you've typically been. You're in a place where I typically have not been. There's a lot of change happening here. But what has not changed is New York Yankees are very good. They've been playing very well. As we record this, Jazz Chisholm just went yard, and the Yankees have taken a 5-1 lead over the Washington Nationals in the 8th inning. We have some Yankees Nationals content coming later in this episode. That's called a tease in the business. But first, how are you doing?
I'm good. Your intro left me trying to remember where we were and have been. And, you know, it's funny. I feel like it's when, you know, a band takes a hiatus and, you know, the fans want to come back and play the hits. And I saw the tweet, you know, asking when you were going to be saying, I'm Will Harris, you're Alec Whipple, and the lead in. And so I feel like it was, you know, maybe we took a few weeks or a week or so off, but our timing is pretty good because we come back at a pretty good time for the Yankees, pretty good time to be a Yankees fan, good time to be an Aaron Judge fan, a Juan Soto fan, an Austin Wells fan, a Nestor Cortez fan.
A Gleyber Torres fan?
Especially a Gleyber Torres fan. I mean, we have so much to talk about, and there have been some pretty crappy losses in the last week and a half, but I think it's a lot easier to stomach those when every game outside of those ends up being a win. And today is kind of an opportune day to record, and definitely during this game, because I think yesterday's game, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was the star power, you know, the back-to-back home runs, just exactly what this Yankees team is capable of. And tonight, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Stanton not really having an impact, but everybody else is coming to play. TORRES,
Gleyber, Wells, Jazz.
I mean, it really, the last two games, I think, are the, you know, the flip side of what this team can be. And really, tonight's game, to me, is so much more important than yesterday's, because we know Judge and Soto and Stanton are capable of going a million miles yard. But the depth of the lineup, I think, is coming into focus. And I don't know where you want to start, but I feel like Gleyber Torres, as kind of ambivalent as I've been on him all year, really does deserve credit for how he's played in the last 2-3 weeks, and maybe not the Torres that we're used to in the last few years, but it really,
although the power may be coming back.
Yeah, 2 home runs in the last 2 games, but Gleyber is a leadoff hitter. Is the solution kind of where the start was? I feel like that's at the top of your mind right now, so we got to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, saying they had the solution at the beginning. Now, as I've said to some people on Twitter, I think we can legitimately ask if at the beginning of the season Gleyber was hurt. And if he's possibly been playing through things all year, I think that would explain a lot of the power outage, especially given that nothing really changed about his plate discipline. It's just been, you know, a lot of weak contact. So if what we're seeing as Gleyber has rounded into form and is continuing to do so, and with the power stroke coming back a little bit in the last few days, is Gleyber getting healthy, then I'd be very interested in, you know, what a 2022, 2023 Gleyber Torres could do for this team. And I really think that, power or otherwise, this is the leadoff hitter they need, especially against left-handed pitching, but probably just all the time. He sees a ton of pitches. He has a good eye. He has a double-digit walk rate. Even in a year when he really hasn't hit, he's gotten on base at a good clip for, you know, someone having the offensive struggles that he's had. And now with, what is it, a 21 or 22 game on base streak now, the power coming back, it's just, the timing could not be better for Gleyber Torres. And I feel like we might be saying that about a lot of guys. Like Austin Wells, this is no longer a hot streak. This is just who he is. So I don't know it's a timing thing there. But for Jazz to come back and now possibly be hitting again, anything you can get from DJ LeMahieu or Alex Verdugo at this point you take. But man, while Stanton's on a hot streak, for Gleyber to find the power stroke, while Judge and Soto are doing what they're doing, and now that whole group of Gleyber, Soto, Judge, Stanton, Wells, maybe even throw Jazz in there, is really hard to navigate. I mean, man, this is already the best lineup from an output perspective in the game. And people knock it and they say it's too easy to navigate, and you just pitch around this guy and do this to that guy, and suddenly you're through it. And I have my own problems with that, and we'll definitely talk about that later on in this episode. But my gosh, it just feels like Gleyber Torres, not only is it so great to see his season turn around in the way that it has, but it's also just awesome that he is the first person that we've seen really take a stranglehold on that leadoff spot and excel there. And am I surprised that he's the guy who ended up doing it? No, it was always, if they weren't going to hit Soto or Judge leadoff, Gleyber was always the right choice. But I am glad that he's the guy who ended up doing it.
Yeah, I can't say I expected Gleyber to be rocking like a 450 on base percentage since moving back to
Crazy.
I mean, it's not the Gleyber that we've seen, that exact profile, but his at bats are really like the best I feel like we've seen all year, and just tailored for what they need in that spot, which is not, I think, a guy who's going to run wild, right? Like we've talked about Volpe not being a good fit there because he can't run, and Volpe's hitting has just been up and down, and Gleyber has a much better power potential than Volpe, even, if he's not in his 2022-23 form. But it makes so much sense it made so much sense at the beginning. I think it was so disappointing that he struggled, and the leadoff, uncertainty came about with Volpe, and then Ben Rice spent some time up there, and it was just like, it was a mess. Like there was Verdugo being in leadoff, and I'm just so glad that, I'm glad that anybody solidified the spot and is really, I feel like, going to be the guy, just one of them. We just needed one person, but for it to be Gleyber, like you said, it made so much sense from the jump. And we've talked about how if there's going to be a third guy emerging, it was going to be Gleyber. And I mean, it's not that much time left in the season, but I just feel like a lot of what happened early on won't really matter if the last month and a half, 2 months are this Gleyber or a better version of Gleyber. Like we know that, June or May through August won't matter at all.
And to be clear, he has a 123 WRC plus now since June 28th. And if you just give me one moment, I can tell you he also has a 113 WRC plus since May 12th. So like, I know I've said this a lot. All we're feeling with Gleyber, with the disappointment in his production this season, is like not even 50 bad games. And they were really bad. And as I said, I think he was probably playing hurt. But you're absolutely right. If this is the guy he is from now until the Yankees clinch the final out of the World Series, then it doesn't matter how badly the season started or how different above average Gleyber looked than typical above average Gleyber has looked. It's just, hey, this is a guy who contributed to them winning a championship, which I certainly hope they do, and I certainly hope he is. But Whipple, we talked a little bit in that discussion about, the length of the lineup, so to speak, or where production is clustered versus more distributed. And, as we were saying, the trend is kind of that guys who were struggling are now finding their level, and production is a little less concentrated just in Soto and Judge. And I think there are benefits to that. But I also think that let's see, how should I say this? I think the navigability of the Yankees lineup for opposing pitchers was vastly overstated. And, the line for so long was, just, pitch around Soto and Judge. There's no one else who's going to beat you. Okay, well, if that's true, why do they score the most runs in the American League?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do they have the highest WRC plus? Like it doesn't make sense. So I posed the question on Twitter. The Yankees have a 119 WRC plus as a team. If you could choose, would you take a 119 WRC plus the way the Yankees have produced it, a lot of it concentrated in two guys, or would you prefer to have every hitter in the lineup post a 119 WRC plus individually? And I'd like to get your take on it, and then I'd like to talk about some input that we got.
Yeah, I mean, first, before I even answer the question, I think people are kind of forgetting, I think the Yankees lineup is so much less to blame for the struggles this year than the fluctuation of the pitching staff. Even in the rough stretches, the offensive output was really actually pretty good. And yeah, it was definitely clustered in certain games and maybe lighter in some other games. But especially in my mind, like from like late July to now, the offense has been clicking. And I don't think the pitching staff has been clicking until a little more recently than that. But I think when we talk about the Yankees offense and whatever struggles there are this year, to me, it's like more frustration at certain players than maybe in like something like last year, where last year truly there was some offensive up and down ineptitude. So I just want to preface that and say, like, I think the pitching just has so much more blame for the struggles in the offense. In regards to your question, and I know I kind of know what the answer is just from, talking to you in the past and doing reading and stuff. I mean, I would always take the lineup with the Yankees' current construction, because you just it is hard to play the game of baseball. And having guys like Judge and Soto, who are, as we talked about, guys who can hit the ball over the fence, who can hit extra base hits, I mean, get on base, like to have that level of production, it doesn't take much more from the other guys for that to be a really good lineup. And I think people would be surprised if they had 9 guys with a 119 WRC plus, how much shortcoming there would be in that, and how frustrated you probably get on guys that maybe you'd think would be good when surrounded by the generational talents, but suddenly are just not as good because you're each guy, or you're not going to have the guys who succeed as much as Judge and Soto do. So each guy's going to fail, I think, a lot more than people want. And I mean, you obviously probably know more about this than I do, but just my feeling is that lineup would have a lot more frustrating games that I think people associate with the current lineup. People would probably be surprised if they looked at that in action. I mean, what's a team like that right now? I don't know, just a middle of the road offensive team with no superstar. It's not good.
To be clear, it would not be a middle of the road offensive team. It would be a very good offensive team. It would have a higher WRC plus as a team than the 1998 or 2009 Yankees. But to your point, it would not have a transcendent player. Honestly, the 2009 Yankees are not a bad comp there. Their highest WRC plus from a qualified hitter was 142, and Judge is obviously 80 points above that, which is bonkers. But I think so I was asking people on Twitter, and, my contention has basically been WOBA, weighted on base average, which is the stat that gives us WRC plus, is basically perfectly correlated with team run scoring. So as a result, there shouldn't really be a difference in team run scoring between two teams that have the same WOBA, no matter how they achieve it. So I thought I remembered reading something in Baseball Prospectus that got at this question, but I couldn't for the life of me find it. I've been looking for weeks. So eventually I tweeted at Russell Carlton, who writes some of the greatest baseball articles on the planet. And I said, hey, do you think you could opine on this question of would you rather have 9 guys who are exactly the same above average hitter, or, a mix where maybe some of the production is more concentrated? And he linked me to an article from 2014 that I remembered reading but could not find, that basically said there is a small positive effect on run scoring, on team run scoring, to having a stars and scrubs approach. So basically he started off with 9 exactly average hitters, and he ran 100,000 simulations, and he figured out how many runs per game that was. And I think in 2014, the average number of runs scored was like 4.21 per game. So they produced 4.21 per game. And then he made the leadoff hitter really good. And by the same amount that he made the leadoff hitter good, he made the 9th hitter bad. And he ran it again. And the runs went up a little bit. And then he did the 2nd hitter and the 8th hitter, same thing. He ran it again. The runs went up a little bit. And then he did the 3rd hitter and the 7th hitter. And he ran it again. The runs went up a little bit. So all that is to say, or maybe it was just the first 2. It might have just been 2 good, 2 bad, 5 average. But all that is to say, the finding there, and he responded to us on Twitter, and we very much appreciate that. And what he explained was basically, people think that baseball is a game of string together hits and string together good at bats, and that's how you score runs, when really runs are scored in short bursts. And the very, very, very good players, the transcendent offensive players, the Aaron's Judge and the Juan's Soto, those are the guys who produce runs for you in short bursts. So it stands to reason as a result that having such guys should boost your offense a little bit. So I appreciated the response from Russell Carlton, and also the clarification of like why it is that the stars and scrubs, as it were, approach can be so effective. And I think we've seen that with the Yankees this year. And, what I've said to everyone, I got in a protracted discussion on Twitter with someone who just kept insisting to me that the Yankees lineup was so easy to pitch to, and I don't understand what I'm seeing on the field. And what I kept responding was just like, why do they score more runs than anyone else?
Right.
Like if the lineup is so easy to navigate, maybe like, sure, if Judge and Soto were just as good as they are now and everyone else in the lineup were a lot better, would the offense be better? Yeah, but that's not novel. That's not interesting. That's obviously true. So I found it very interesting to find that it's not even just a wash. It's actually a little bit better to have the transcendent offensive players, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad the Yankees have that then. I think obviously, like you said, yeah, if they had all Judges and Sotos, like that would be no surprise how good this team would be. But I think it reaffirms the faith in the current lineup that we should have. And I definitely have, become more of a believer, I think, after seeing like these other guys around to form. But at the end of the day, like it doesn't really matter because of the transcendent guys. And we've seen it so many ways this year. And it speaks to how good they are, like beyond good as we've ever defined it before. It's not just, 2009, Mark Teixeira was the 142 WRC plus, right?
Yes.
2009. I mean, Mark Teixeira, I remember him being an incredible hitter that year. Like, top 3 in MVP. I think he was 2 or 3 in MVP voting. Like, Mark Teixeira won them a championship. And Judge and Soto are making Mark Teixeira, like, not like a minor leaguer in comparison. I mean, it's just, they're just so much better. And I think that, not just 2 good players, but 2 transcendent players is something that we're really seeing play out. And I'm excited to see it play in the postseason. Knock on wood that they're there and healthy and we can see what that looks like. But to say that people can pitch around the Yankees lineup, I think the last, especially recently, has shown us that really is not the case with these 2 guys who are basically on, 50-50 shots to get on base every time and do more than that. I mean, it's awesome. And I'm glad that the research affirms the belief that we should have in these guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're just unbelievable players, and they are so good that they can carry a team. And like this is the funny thing about like just the narratives that exist. Like someone responded to one of my tweets about this whole idea and was talking about how he would trust the lineup of where every hitter is the same above average guy more in the playoffs to, string together a rally against great pitching. I'm like, sorry, dude, that's just That's not how you score runs in the playoffs. Like, you score runs in the playoffs by hitting more home runs than your opponent. And you know who's good at hitting the ball over the fence? Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. And I'd rather have those guys. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Whipple, I do want to get into a bit of a discussion of Mid-Atlantic baseball, because we have a lot to delve into on that topic. Not only did you conduct an interview with a Nationals fan that we'll throw it to shortly, but I conducted some competitive research at the Orioles game.
Yeah. Wait.
On
What happened? I'm sorry. Like, I know you're going to explain it, but I just saw the text and I was like, what happened? And you can share as much as you want to, but I'm intrigued to hear what went down in whatever terms you want to describe it in.
Yeah. So so I was at the Orioles Astros game on Friday as part of the bachelor party that a good friend of mine was having in America's 30th largest city, Baltimore, Maryland. And there were probably 15 of us. And my friend's favorite player on the Orioles is Colton Cowser, the milkman. Colton Cowser is possibly named after my friend's cat. We don't know. Anyway, Cowser hit a home run early in the game, which was like the moment of the game, we thought. And, you know, everyone went nuts. And even though the Astros were beating the Orioles at that time, it was like, okay, you know, that's good enough. Like, that he would hit a home run on this day, all of that. But then there was a situation in the 8th inning. And that situation was Brian Abreu came in relief and loaded the bases. And with nobody out. And Anthony Santander, who's having a ridiculous year, hitting a ton of home runs, came up to the plate. And I was a teetotaler that day, so I was stone cold sober. And that's not a joke. But many of the other dudes were not. And there was a palpable buzz and just an overwhelming feeling that Santander is going to hit a grand slam. And that's what he did. And upon him doing that, there was, you know, great jubilation among the group. And some people probably did some things that they shouldn't have done. And by that, I mean one person threw a beer, and you're not supposed to do that, especially when it goes over the railing of the upper deck and down into the next one. And we were then asked to leave. Well, I should amend that statement. 2 people were then asked to leave: the Bachelor and the guy who threw the beer. The Bachelor's brother then said, basically, if he goes, I go. And the security guard was like, you mean it? You promise? You really will? And then we all left, and it was the most, it was like the most orderly getting kicked out of a game of all time. There was a let's go home chant on our way down the stairs, which was solid. But yeah, you know, a guy threw a beer. You're not supposed to do that. They were justified in asking the group to leave. But we got to see the Astros blow a game in epic fashion. The last 2 times I've gone to games at Camden Yards, and Oriole has hit a grand slam, which is a little bit weird. I might need to use that power a little bit more wisely, or maybe not use that power. Maybe that would be the wise way to use it. But yeah, I can now say that I've been kicked out of a Major League Baseball game. Well, kind of. I've been associated with people who were kicked out of a Major League Baseball game, and I've voluntarily left with them.
I mean, I guess you could have stayed and just been the one person while all your friends left. But
yeah,
you know,
but that wasn't.
Check the box of being kicked out. But I mean, this does bring up a question. You know, I'm a little concerned, just in the way you were a little bit concerned when, you know, I was going to Fenway and potentially jinxing the 2021 Yankee season. I know the Orioles have played the Red Sox and the Astros, but you've definitely, I think, shown that you might be rooting for the Orioles to win some of these games. I have to wonder,
Yeah.
how are you going to handle this division race? Or do I have to question your partiality in any way? Or
Come on.
even 1%?
That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. Here's the thing. I want the Yankees to win the division, obviously. I want the Yankees to win every game they play. I want the Yankees to win no matter who they're playing. But when it comes to rooting for results in games that the Yankees are not a part of, I have a moral code. And that moral code dictates that I not ever root for the Astros or the Red Sox. So if that means that while the Yankees, to be clear, have the lead in the AL East, if that means that I am merely rooting a couple times for the Orioles to maintain their position relative to the Yankees so that I do not have to put my soul through the task of rooting for the Red Sox or Astros, that's something I'm willing to accept.
This is like some like U.S. Soviet Union, like Germany in World War II. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, like I think you're in a tough position. I'm not accusing everything. I feel for you that your second favorite team is now potentially, you know, these games do matter, and if it comes down to the wire,
so here, Whipple, suppose the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Suppose the enemy of your enemy is your friend. My enemies are the Astros and Red Sox. The Orioles are not my enemy.
But if the Red Sox are 9 games out of the division, the Astros are in another division, and you want the Yankees at the best possible seeding, you would still root for the Orioles. You want the Yankees to outplay the Orioles even in spite of the Astros and Red Sox.
Yes, because it is wrong in every case to root for the Astros or Red Sox.
Have you ever been?
It's just the bottom line.
Have you been to an Astros Red Sox game?
No, I would root for a tsunami.
But like, if you had to pick, because I went to one in 2021, and I rooted. At that point, I think I was rooting against specific players, but then the Astros were beating up on the Red Sox. I was like, this feels right. So
yeah, no, I would root for the Astros over the Red Sox, but that's the only team.
That's fair.
Like I would root for I'd root for the Rays or Blue Jays or Mets or whoever else, certainly, to beat the Astros.
Actually, I think we left that game in the 6th and just went to a bar. We're like, this all sucks, but like, so okay,
that's awesome.
No, I'm not accusing. I'm just saying, I just want to know, you know, you're gonna be there in September and October if it's Yankees Orioles. I mean, I'm glad you're not gonna be in Baltimore because you know we've extracted you from across the enemy lines, and you're gonna be safe. You're gonna be safe in the you know your apartment in New York, and you're gonna be having a good time watching the Yankees. But just want to make sure. Just in the same way you were just checking in on me when I was trapped in Boston.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, I don't think I ever accused you of being a Red Sox fan.
No, I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying, I don't know. I am not rooting for the Orioles in any circumstance, but I appreciate the Orioles and Astros, especially if you're there.
So you are rooting for the Astros and Red Sox in certain circumstances, is another way to say what you're saying.
In this specific year, in these specific circumstances, yes, I was rooting for the Astros to beat the Orioles this weekend.
And you were rooting for the Red Sox to beat them when they played.
That one was like, I feel like the Red Sox were close enough. I was rooting for the split, but yeah, I probably was rooting for the Orioles to lose. I'll be honest. You have a stronger moral code than I do. And I applaud you. I followed your lead in fantasy baseball this year. I don't have an Astro or Red Sox.
You did, which I appreciate.
So I'm doing the best I can, but I'm just trying to learn. I'm fact finding as a lawyer.
Okay. You had a conversation about the other Mid-Atlantic baseball team.
I did. So my law school roommate for two and a half years is a huge Nationals fan. Talk baseball every day. And we're going to the game on Wednesday. Going to see Dylan Cruz and James Wood versus Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And we're super excited. And we thought it'd be a good time for him to come on, share his experiences, share what watching Juan Soto as an 18-year-old was like, and just, hear his thoughts on the Nationals and the Yankees. And I think we had a fun time. It was a good segment. And, it's funny. It's like for him, it's like watching your ex-girlfriend date someone else. I appreciate his honesty, and I don't want to make him feel bad, but I'm like, are you okay? Like when I put on the Yankees and Nationals, and it's, he had the beginning of the relationship, and he will always have the special first world title, but he's a big fan. He's a big Soto fan, and he had some interesting insights, and he was very respectful, and I think everyone will enjoy listening. So we can kick it over.
So yeah, without any further ado, we'll send it there.
Yankees Files podcast. We are back with a special guest segment because for the first time in Yankees Files history, we have two law students, not just one, two law students live and in person. And it took 121 episodes to get there, but we've done it. As my roommate, Wilshire, who has heard me recording for about the better part of 2.5 years now, always has takes about the Yankees, his beloved Nationals, or just the state of baseball in general. He is finally on the podcast to talk some ball, and we thought no better time than the Yankees heading to DC for a 3-game series. We're going to get in a car and drive up from Virginia to go to one of the games, and we just thought this was the best time to bring Will on and hear what he has to say. So, Will, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Long time no see.
Long time no see. Will and I are currently like two rooms, 2 doors down from each other. We're as far apart as you can get in our small apartment. But we just wanted to get the authentic experience of a guest calling in. And we've been talking about this for a while, Will. Ever since I met you, we've talked Yankees, we've talked Nationals, we've watched some ups and downs, but your baseball fandom goes far beyond our law school experience together. So tell me a bit about how you got into baseball and how you got into the Nationals and just what your experience as a Nats fan and a baseball fan has been through your life.
Yeah. So, gosh, man, my baseball history goes back a long ways. I started playing when I was 3 years old, as long back as I can remember. And, that was my one sport that I stuck with all through high school, all through my adolescence, kept playing. I was a pitcher, fell in love with the game completely. And believe it or not, much to the dismay of this, I actually grew up a Yankees fan. And the reason my Nats, I know, and the reason my Nats fandom actually came to be is, grew up a Yankees fan. At the time of Jeter, the core four, all that, winning the ring in 2009. But when it actually came time for me to sit down and want to start watching, substantive games of full 9 innings, I went to my parents and asked, "Hey, how can I find the Yankees?" And they told me, "Hey, we only had cable." And growing up in the DMV, when you only have cable, the only teams you get are the Nats and the Orioles. And I couldn't betray my Yankees by being an Orioles fan. So the only rational decision was to switch and become a Nationals fan. And ever since they've been my team, I've followed the Nats all the way through their ups and downs. And that brings me here today.
So it sounds like you enjoyed the Yankee successes and then bandwagon fan hopped off when the Jeter years were going down to get on the ascendant Strasburg Harper teams. And, not a bad decision. The Nats from 2012 to 2019 were a really successful franchise. And really, to this day, I contend the Yankees should have been the ones to meet the Nationals in the 2019 World Series.
Agreed.
But I think America wants to thank the Nationals for doing the service of beating the Astros in, I think, one of the more entertaining World Series that I remember watching. What was your experience going through? I mean, I know you said you watched in 2009, but like when you're old enough to really, be able to go to the games and know the players more and to be able to experience it being in the DC, Virginia area, what was your experience during that postseason run and watching that team?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been conditioned to believe that the Nationals were just historic losers. I mean, 2012, we blew it against in the divisional round. We blew it in 5 games, especially after that Jason Worth walk-off home run. We blew it again, Drew Storen, a couple years later in the same round against the Giants, and that led to a drop-off. And so by 2019, I was fully in belief that the Nationals were just going to flame out, especially because at that point, it felt Harper was gone. A couple of the other bigger guys were gone. It felt that that was really just the tail end of our dynasty run, which we weren't able to capitalize on. So my expectations were pretty low. We went down early in the wild card game, and then of course the famous Soto hit happened in the eighth. And once we won that game, I was just riding on the high of it. Really, I was just playing with free money. And so going through that run, you know the Dodgers are coming next. You realistically think you're going to lose, and once we won that, it started to feel a little weird just because this was uncharted territories, first time in the championship round. And once we went up like one game or two games on the Cardinals in the next round, and you really start to get this idea that the Nationals truly and plausibly could go to the World Series. It just felt unreal. It ended up being a great series, and like you said, we were able to take care of the Astros, who deserved to lose, and do a service to the rest of the country. But as a sports fan across all sports, it was the best feeling of my life to watch that team win. I can't put it into words truly how great it was, and I hope you get to experience that this year with your Yankees.
I know. I mean, I often say the Yankees and their fans are the most cursed franchise in baseball. It's been 15 years since we've been
Well,
at the World Series. So the Nationals get that. The Royals have been there. It's hard to remember what that feels like. But yeah, I think although I was upset about 2019, I'm really happy the Nationals won. I think it's a great reminder that, the narrative arc of baseball is often like unexpected. I mean, like you said, that was expected to be the end of the Nationals winning era with the Harper leaving for Philly. And to have that be the team that broke through and just a lot of guys, a lot of veterans coming together for career years, it just shows like nothing is ever predictable. And
absolutely.
baseball always keeps us on our toes. And it was
Yep.
it was fun watching that. And right now you are kind of living the hypothetical, how many years of losing would you trade for one title? Because the Nationals have not been good in a while. I mean, I moved to DC in 2021, and so I've kind of been down DC, Virginia area for 3 years now, and just never even seen the glimpse of a competitive team. I think there have been stretches, but by and large, the Nationals have just been bad.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Nats Park, I've seen them lose, except for like one time. And so, as a Yankees fan, it's often the case we enter the season with really high expectations. Whether those are met or not is a different story. But as a Nationals fan the last 5 years, you had the title glory and you had the years of winning. But what has gotten you through once the post 2019 glow wore off? What was gotten you through the last few years to keep your interest in this team and make you optimistic about where they're going?
Well, believe it or not, I think a post-championship hangover lasts a little bit longer than some might anticipate. So it actually gets you through the first couple of years of the badness setting in. But I'd say the main thing is just hope. I think it was inevitable that the Nationals would trade away the good players. It's what every team does when they start to rebuild and when players get expensive. And so for the hauls we got in return for the players, you're just hoping that they pan out. I think we're starting to see that now with a couple of the guys. And so that's really what's gotten me through. You temper your expectations at the start once everything gets sold off. But then after that, you place your hope into the guys that you think will be the next generation. And you hope that they turn into the players that you think they'll be. I'm cautiously optimistic that they will, especially with a couple of the guys now like Wood and especially Abrams. But I think the Nationals are at an okay place for where they are now, and hopefully, my hope in the Nationals being good one day starts to become reality here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Wood seems like he's on his way to being a star. Abrams and Gore, who we'll be seeing pitch on Wednesday, have started off their careers with, I think, flashes of success or sustained success. We're going to see Dylan Cruz playing his first series this week, and that's a pretty big name. I mean, to see make his major league debut and playing his first couple of games. So, of like the group, what's your like pick? If there's the next Harper or Soto, which one of these guys is it?
It's tough to say. I definitely think Wood has the intangibles that, a player like an Aaron Judge would have. He's extremely tall. He's still coming into his frame. You can tell he's a young guy. So he certainly has the ability to become this quick, strong, powerful player one day. He's not there yet though, so I'm not willing to say, that he definitely will be that player. As of now, I'm most excited probably on Abrams and Gore, actually. I think Abrams has the ability, if he can settle in and become a consistently good hitter, which he's done for the majority of this year, to be a franchise shortstop, which is an extremely hard position to fill, as you know. And I think with
We definitely know.
and I think with Gore, there's huge upside with a lefty that can run it up into the upper 90s. He's still a young guy. He's got a good curveball. For him, it's just going to be to continue to develop. I'd like to see him get a little better with his third and fourth pitches. But from there, it's a little more wait and see with him. So I guess right now I'd say Abrams is my number one, and then a tie with Wood and Gore for 2 and 3.
So I think that's a great segue because Abrams and Gore are, the guys you're most optimistic on. And 2 years ago, they were the guys that headlined the massive and Wood as well. So sorry, we should loop Wood into this. Abrams and Gore headlined. Wood was a part of the deal. The massive summer blockbuster for Juan Soto, to bring Juan Soto from DC to San Diego. And that was the one of the summers I was in DC, and I just remember when that happened, like it was crazy. Like we hadn't seen a player get moved at the deadline for that prospect package. I mean, I think it took a team that had the guy like Soto plus an AJ Preller level executive who was willing to just push all the chips in and go for it. And when do you see a 25-year-old superstar get traded like that? And little did we know we would see it again, because Juan Soto will be coming back to DC with the New York Yankees. And it's funny that like I saw Soto a few times in DC. I saw his first game back with the Padres was the last night I was in DC before I moved down to Williamsburg for school. And now his first trip back with the Yankees, I'll be there. So Juan Soto, the Yankees, the Nationals, you and I, we're all kind of intertwined here. And I mean, I'll speak for all Yankees fans when I say that, like, this guy is great. Like he is just incredible. Watching him play every day has been, I know Aaron Judge has been otherworldly, but watching Juan Soto just like fulfill this place of happiness that I didn't really know existed. I mean, the excitement that he brings, the way he commands every at bat, the way he just is so selective with his pitches. And then when he sees his pitch, he'll hit it. He'll take walks. He'll basically do everything he can to get on base every single time. And I've just never seen someone do all that and just look like calm, cool, collected, never stressed at the plate. Like in the batter pitcher matchup, he just seems like he is always in control. So I've only watched him, from afar and now in this 2024 season. But you saw Soto coming up as an 18-year-old and then winning the World Series and playing for a few more years. What was like your relationship with watching Soto, and how do you feel now that you're seeing him in another uniform? You got to stand up and show everyone what jersey you're wearing.
Yes.
No,
of course, I gotta represent my guy. But Juan Soto, as you've said, he's great. As a former pitcher, consistently the one guy, the one type of hitter that causes me and most pitchers the most trouble is the guys who are really able to dig in with 2 strikes, prolong an at bat, foul off pitches, take close balls, and wait for that one pitch that they can just flick over the second baseman to get a single. And that's Juan Soto to a T. I mean, that's the reason why he's an all-star hitter, going to be a Hall of Famer one day, is just his ability to be selective in the box, exploit bad pitches and take them over the fence, especially now at Yankee Stadium, but more so just his ability to draw out at bats, get on base, get walked. And I think that's, increasingly rare, especially today when we're seeing, the StatCast home run guys come out of nowhere and take over the game. But, getting to watch Soto for as long as he was in DC was just an absolute treat. I stand by to this day that I think Juan Soto is a superior baseball player than Bryce Harper. He was a large reason why we won the World Series, and I was really happy that he was on that team and was able to lead it. I wish he could have stuck around, but ultimately the Nationals offered him the big deal. He turned it down. And once you do that, with a year left of control, I understand why we let him go. You want to get something out of a player that good. And I think that was the right thing to do given the circumstances. But, ultimately, I'm excited he's on the Yankees. I think he loves to be there, and I think he's an absolute treat to watch. One of the best hitters I've ever seen.
So do you think he's staying? As someone who's watched Soto, who maybe knows him more, is that your prediction or?
You know, if I remember right, he has Boris as his agent,
Mm,
so that's going to dictate a lot of it. But I think he wants to stay. I think, you know, he looks truly happy there. I think Juan Soto is someone who plays off the crowd. He loves the energy, and unfortunately, as a Nationals fan, I do have to admit that the Yankees and the Yankee Stadium brings that sort of energy that I think Juan Soto feeds off of, and I
yeah.
think he wants to win again.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of teams out there that would give him the opportunity, but probably none as consistently as the Yankees, or maybe Yankees and Dodgers, and we'll see. I mean, it's another podcast problem, not one for the current 2024 season, but I'd be lying if I said it would be tough. It wouldn't be tough to see him, play in a different uniform. But at the same time, seeing him play for one season has been awesome. Like, just knowing that, like, knowing what you know now, remembering back to what he was he like this, like, right from the jump? I mean, in 2018, did you said this is going to be like a future Hall of Famer? Or did it take him like a little bit?
I mean, I think you knew by 2019 when we won that there was something special going on. It's, he's only, what, a couple months older than me. So for me to see a kid my age doing the things he was doing at that stage of his life and his career was special. I do think, he's added a lot of power as he's aged a little bit. I think a lot of that this year's been Yankee Stadium and the short porch, but I think also, he's added power into his game and that's just made him better. But even from the jump, I mean, he was very good at seeing balls in, getting on base. The same things that make him good today, he was doing back then. So you kind of knew you had something special in your hands.
Well, we will see. I'm excited to see him back in DC and see the rest of the Yankees take on the Nationals. And you're on a Yankees podcast. Before we let you go, we got to just run through some players that you might have thoughts on, because we watch pretty much every game together while we're in school. And I know you are a generational hater. You are very critical. You don't just sit back and just let players play. You got to share your thoughts, and you got to call out poor performance where you see it. But you also, if a player gets through the Wilshire criticism, if you give him the respect, that's a good player. You don't give praise lightly. So I got a few players to rattle off, and I just want you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how fraudulent are these players? So 10 out of 10 is these guys are total frauds. 1 out of 10 is, I believe that they're really good players. Just give me the number and give me like a quick reason why you think what you think. So we're going to start off with a fan favorite, Clay Holmes. What do you think about Clay Holmes?
I'd give Clay Holmes like a 3 or a 4. And I'll say this before I get started on everyone else. I think it's important. I listened to another podcast, and this host says this: when you're rating players, before you rate whether someone's over or underrated, you have to ask, what are they rated? And I think most people would rate Clay Holmes as an upper end late reliever. I think Clay Holmes has the stuff to make him an upper end reliever, and he is one most of the time. So the blowups are bad, and I think Yankees fans are overcritical sometimes. So I'm going to give him a 3 or a 4.
Okay, that's a lot better than I think a lot of Yankees fans are. I think a lot of Yankees fans are saying 10 out of 10, but I know the other Will Harris will love to hear your positive review of Clay. Let's go to another pitcher, Marcus Stroman. What are your thoughts on Marcus?
I'd give Stroman like an 8 or a 9. He's very fraudulent. I think most people view Marcus Stroman as this all-star starting pitcher who's going to come in and be, one of the faces of most organizations. He's just not that. You pay him way too much money. He's okay, I guess. If his name was Jeff Smith and he was on the Nationals, you wouldn't know who Marcus Stroman is. So
okay, and yet we saw him pitch in June, and he pitched very well. So I don't know. I mean, granted, he has not pitched well in a lot of other games recently, but maybe he was just pitching well to prove a point to you that he's not a fraud. So, all right, another favorite of yours, Giancarlo Stanton. What do you rate Mr. Stanton?
This one's my 10. This one is my 10. Giancarlo Stanton is perhaps the most fraudulent player on the Yankees. I don't think you pay players to get hurt. Giancarlo Stanton has not shown me in a very long time that he can't get hurt. He gets hurt every year for the most part. And this year, when he does play, he stinks. So you pay him way too much money, and he's a 10.
He had a really long home run today, so maybe, the tides might start turning. But I know you're a Stanton hater, so, and objectively, I don't think he's delivered on his contract value. So, but, he does hit some long dingers. All right. Anthony Volpe, what are your thoughts?
Let's just go split down the middle at 5, just because he's young and there's still a lot to be said. I think the bat's not there, and that needs to get a lot better. And I think over time, the defense is going to drop off, and you're going to need a bat to be there for him to be consistent at shortstop. But as it is right now, he's a good defender. So, and the jury's still out since he's still pretty young. So I'll go 5 for now, but it could increase in the future.
Yeah, I think the ideal for Volpe would start to be more like what CJ Abrams is doing, really adding on the bat to the defense. Carlos Rodon, Wednesday starting pitcher.
Once again, I'll go 3. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit biased here, but I think it's rare to see a lefty with as good a stuff as Rodon has, just pure fastball slider. The blow-up starts are bad. He has had injury concerns, and that hurts him, and he gets paid a lot. But I think, he has the ability to turn it on a lot, and I think when he's on, he's one of the best lefties in the game.
Yeah, very AJ Burnett vibes. That's what the other Will Harris said before the season. And I kind of agree. This has been an AJ Burnett-like season, but could mean good things at the end. Or last one, surprise one that I didn't tell you about, Aaron Judge. What's the Aaron Judge?
Zero.
You can't find anything bad to say about him? No.
Right now, no.
I know.
I mean, he's the MVP right now. He's incredible. One of the best hitters I've ever seen in my life. And I hope he makes the Hall.
I told you earlier, you had to leave to go somewhere, and I said you got to stay and watch Judge hit again. And you left, and you missed the Soto Judge stand back home runs, and it's just a lesson. You don't leave during Judge bats, and
Never.
Now you've learned your lesson. So the fraud or not, or whatever we'll call that. The first we've talked about Will having his own podcast, just hating on players. So maybe this is the soft launch of that. If we have more time, I'd do Nationals players, but I feel like the Nationals are not really in a stage to be that critical right now. And it's more like you said about development, but I'm sure when they're good again, I'm excited for when they're good again, because I feel like I'll really get to see the generational hater Nationals edition come out in person.
Oh boy. We'll see.
So we're going to wrap up this segment, but before we go, we're going to do 2 quick things. First, we're going to the game. We got the series this week. Yankees are fighting for their lives in the AL East. The Nationals are just trying to keep building developmentally in the NL East. What are we thinking for series results? And we'll say score prediction for the game we're going to. So who's going to win the series, and what's the score of Wednesday's game going to be?
So I'd hope that the Yankees win the series 3-0. I'd hope they sweep.
That's
because
probably not going to happen.
but because that would help their playoff odds and all they're going for. But I'd hope in that 3-0 the Nationals young players play good. I think the game that we go to, it's going to be hot, so I'll call it a high scoring game. I say the Yankees win 7-3.
Okay. I mean, the way the Yankees are playing, they're going to win 2 out of 3, but the third game is going to be the most heartbreaking loss you've ever seen. Base running errors, and you've won the series, but you've embarrassed yourself in one game. So, let's just hope Wednesday is not the game that will happen at. But we will see. And last thing we're going to do is we always have our guests do a fan confidence rating. So, we're going to do 2 quick ratings. What's your confidence in the Yankees this season, and then what's your confidence in the Nationals in general? I know they're more bigger picture than the Yankees.
Yeah. Okay. So starting with the Yankees, I'd give you guys, I'm an 8 or a 9 confident in the Yankees. I think most people would say that the Yankees should be the best team in the AL. I think you are the best team in the AL. I think your World Series ring just hinges on how well your pitching can do in October. And I think if that can come through, I think you guys have a legitimate shot at a ring. I'm confident. As far as the Nationals go, I give us a 5 or a 6. I think, we're kind of in a weird state where it just depends if if the young guys pan out, then we go out and sign guys and go from there. But if not, then we flounder and, are bad for 30 years. So I'm a 5 or 6 confident that it'll happen ultimately. We'll see.
There we go. I mean, Juan Soto really has changed the fortunes of both of our teams with, the way the Yankees are playing and then the way his trade really kickstarted this current rebuild for you. So I think, given that if Juan Soto was not a player, I think both of our fan bases would be suffering more. So we can find the commonality and this week just, root for Juan Soto and all of the players on his trade tree. And that's pretty cool. Like it is, I had my friend on last year opening day when it was Yankees Giants. He's a Giants fan. And I feel like, it's not often when you have some fan bases interconnected by something, but Yankees and Giants definitely had, a bit of the interconnectedness with Aaron Judge thing.
Yeah.
And I think Yankees Nationals are in a similar position. There's not bad blood, but there's a lot of crossover, with Soto and of course, Joey Gallo playing for the Nationals, who I'm excited to see play and strike out 4 times. So
there you go.
I'm glad we got to do this. I'm glad we got you on the pod, and, good luck to you in law school, and good luck to the Nationals. And DC is a fun place when the Nationals are playing well. So I hope that happens relatively soon, because it really is not very fun to go to the park every day and see a team not playing well. But you got the guys, so let's just see if they develop. Is there anything you want to say? Any more shout outs or plugs, or anything you want to say as a parting shot?
No, thank you for having me on. I always love the opportunity to come on here, talk some Yankees Nationals. The good guys got to stick together. So hoping one of the two can have some success later on in the year.
Well, we're going to kick it back to the main segment, but thanks again for coming on, Will, and pass it back to the other Will.
And we are back. Whipple, thanks so much for that interview. I hope that your roommate does not have to experience anything worse than Juan Soto simply playing for an opposing team. Like, I hope that his friend does not date his ex-girlfriend or whatever the analogy was.
Yeah, I don't know. I went all over the place with that, but hopefully not.
All right. So as the Yankees look to nail down a 5-2 win against the Nationals, let's get to confidence. It's been a while since we've been grading confidence together. So where do you net out on this team?
I mean, I think I'm still at a 9. I think they played really good baseball in the last week. I know that with the week we didn't record together, there was some disappointing games against the Tigers and White Sox, and the series opener against the Guardians. Obviously, that was a pretty bad game, but that stuff happens. I think we're past the point of saying the Yankees are sub 500 since like June or whatever the endpoint people are drawing is, because the Yankees have been really good since late July, and they're back in first place, hopefully expanding upon that lead as the Orioles have some tough matchups coming up and the Yankees have some hopefully easier ones. And I still think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, in some way, shape, or form, the last week of the season, because the Yankees and the Orioles are both good teams. But I think the lineup rounding into form and the pitching staff kind of finding its footing in different ways. Bullpen's still up and down, but listen, the Yankees, if they're going to win the World Series, it's because of the hitting. It always has been. It always will be. And that alone is enough to keep my confidence at a 9. Are they going to go on a run that could boost my confidence to a 10? Sure. But if you have a 9 confidence and the division lead in, entering September, you're in a pretty good spot. So I feel like good about that rating.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, obviously, I'm a devotee of the PECOTA standings, which have the Yankees at a little better than a 3/4 chance to win the division, which I really like, because as much as people have started to buy into this idea that playing in the wild card series might actually be an advantage because division winners keep losing, I don't want any part of that. And so I like where they stand in the division. I like their chances. I love the offense rounding into form. I love what they're getting from Jazz, from Wells, from Gleyber. As I mentioned, they got a barrel from Volpe to dead center earlier tonight. Like, come on, how can you not be excited about this? And yeah, I mean, as you said, they'll go as far as their bats take them, or as short as their pitching limits them. But I'm excited to get Clark Schmidt back. I'm excited about the reinforcements that are coming in the bullpen, whether that's Ian Hamilton, Scott Efros, Lou Trevino, whoever, whatever combination of those guys it turns out to be. And as the Yankees nail down a win from a clean inning from Clay Holmes in DC, we will wrap this podcast up. Whipple, do you have any parting shots?
Yeah. I mean, we got to talk for a brief second. Old Timers Day with the 2009 Yankees. I mean, we remember some guys, but like, did you feel kind of old watching that? It was weird, like weird in a way that like few baseball things have been weird. I think seeing them all sitting in line, I mean, seeing the, David Cohen, Paul O'Neill. Okay, I'm used to that. We've been doing that for, 15, 20 years. But I mean, seeing A-Rod, CeCe, Matsui, Damon, Jeter, Mariano, like that's the old timers. It so cool. It made me really upset they weren't playing the game because I would have loved to have seen those guys play, but just to see them all together and especially A-Rod being back. I mean, I think we're big A-Rod fans, and to see him get an ovation, it was awesome. But what a 15 years, like that's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. First of all, it's too long. It's too long. So the Yankees got to do something about that. Second of all, I completely agree with you. And, Matsui had been to prior Old Timers days, but I was thinking about how 2003 is the first baseball season that I feel like I really experienced as a human. Like I remember the Yankees losing the 2001 World Series, but like it's a very like superficial memory. And I don't remember almost anything about the 2002 season, which is funny. But 2003 is like the first season that I think can consider myself a baseball fan. And Matsui was a rookie that year. And like, I don't feel like I'm that old. Obviously, I'm a lot older than I was in 2003, but like, I don't feel like I'm that old. So when it's, guys like him and Posada and Jeter and A-Rod, who wasn't even on the team yet, like, it's really crazy. Now, if I had scheduled Old Timers Day for the 2009 team, I know that they got in their bag a little bit with like Phil Koch and some other guys, but like, it would have just been like Juan Miranda, Jerry Hairston Jr., Eric Hinsky, not Sergio Mitre because he is deservingly in jail, but like Chad Godin, and we just roll with it.
Right. Well, there was some guy. I mean, even Hairston was there, but like
Yep.
Jabba wasn't there. Phil Hughes wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Cano is still playing, and David Robertson is still playing. Like that's another funny way to look at it.
David Robertson does make me feel young, especially because not only in the sense that like, oh, this guy from my childhood is still playing, but also in the sense that like he's having a second peak at like 39 or 40 or whatever he is, and that's just like great news for everyone.
And I love Mike Harkey sitting in the dugout with everyone. Mike Harkey still being on this team is like one of those things like you just remember every once in a while. And you're like, oh, like he's still around. It makes you feel old. They got to play the game though, right? Like last thing.
They got to play the game.
I think it will come back eventually, but like it's already been too long. Like
they got
to Old Timers Day, right?
I went to Old Timers Day in 2009. I saw Jabba Chamberlain pitch. The Yankees beat the Tigers. And I will say, my last thought on Old Timers Day is for so long, the Yankees had, and this is going to come out in a way that I don't want it to come out, but I don't know any other way to say it. For so long, the Yankees had all-time greats to bring back on Old Timers Day who were truly old timers. Like Mickey Mantle died in 1995. Joe DiMaggio died in the late 90s. They hadn't played for, 3 to 4 decades at that point. And then you had later on, Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford. You had Don Larson, who was not an all-time great, but had an all-time great moment. And, they were the connection to those teams, and they weren't just the connection to those teams. They were, great players. And I'm certain that there's a generation of people for whom Ron Guidry and Reggie Jackson evoke some of those same feelings. But or maybe I'm wrong, because what I'm about to say is maybe it's because I watched them. Maybe it's because their careers feel and were so recent. Maybe it's something else, but Derek Jeter and A-Rod and even Bernie to an extent, but like the guys who were on the dynasty teams, but like not around for the 09 team are a little bit different. Like those guys coming back, like seeing Mariano Rivera and seeing Whitey Ford do not feel like the same thing to me.
Right. And I'm sure that's just always how it's going to be. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be, you know, our children will feel that, like, you know, the starts to get like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's just, it's hard to feel like someone's an old timer when you just like remember vividly them playing, you know,
Yeah.
at the stadium. You're still, you know, it's like, I agree with you. I just think that's like the nature of the change of generations. It does feel different. It feels like, you know, everything's skewed a little more recently. And I think that's, you know, unfortunately just the people who are still alive, but it's still,
I think it's also the fact that from 1978 to 1996, they didn't win anything.
Right. And like, I mean, Mattingly and Reggie weren't there, were they?
I didn't get to see the whole ceremony, but I don't think so.
I mean, I think Mattingly's coaching and Reggie's.
Yeah, and Reggie's with the Astros, yeah.
Yeah, like, I guess, you know, some weird things about it. I just think, like, I mean, I went in 2019. I saw the Yankees get blown out by the Astros because Jay had the Astros. And 2019 was not good. But it, you know, then I think some of the older guys were still around. Like, it didn't really matter to me. Like, it was just seeing the game and seeing them all, you know, do the introductions, but then play. Like, I just think when the game isn't there, the introductions become more present and you think about stuff like that. If the game is there, then like everyone's having a good time anyway. Yeah. I think the message is bring back the game.
Bring back the game.
I don't know. That's my thought.
Bring it back. All right. So as we wrap up this podcast, the Yankees have beaten the Washington Nationals in their first game of this series. They have taken a 2-game lead on the Baltimore Orioles. They have the most wins in Major League Baseball as I make this statement. Whipple, people can find us at YankeesFiles.com. They can find everything we do on Twitter, where we're at YankeesFiles. They can get the podcast wherever they get their podcasts. And we hope they'll rate, review, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. Whatever boosts our rating, if they like it. We hope if they don't like it, they just juice the view numbers a lot, because we don't need their negativity. The whole video podcast goes up on Spotify if you're listening there, and also on the Crosstown Sports YouTube channel, youtube.com/@CrosstownSports. You can follow Crosstown Sports on Twitter at CrosstownSN. Whipple, we will be back similar time, similar place next week. I won't be in a similar place. I'll be in Texas to recap the week that was. And until then, let's go Yankees.